my fucking favorite, and we've had very different life experiences. Okay, you guys, I'm very excited. Our next storyteller is brand new to our stage, but not brand new to stages. This guy is quite the guy, has had quite the career. He was raised in Mississippi and Vallejo, California. He's currently serving time in Sacramento and plays a criminal defense attorney in real life. 33 years, you guys. Give it up. I call Keith Stanton to the witness stand!
It's a long way. You got it. All right. I learned two things. Number one, I'm not the only person who was a virgin at 18. I feel better now, you know. It's sort of embarrassing at times. And two, under the law, every time you do stick it in, it's a crime. So it would have been 10 counts against the guy. So, you know, just to clarify, just to let you know, that's what I do. All right, I'm happy to be here, you know, because ass, gas, or grass, right? You know, nobody rides for free, right? And that's what we're talking about, right? I'm sorry. Not ass, gas, or grass. Sex, drugs, and rock and roll. Okay, all right. I like that too. You know, my mom, she would always pick gas. You know, every time. So, but sex, drugs, and rock and roll. So, I decided, well, let's see. I think I got a story for each one. So I think I'll tell you about my first sex experience, okay? So I'm 9 years old. We live in Vallejo. I know, 9, watch. I'm 9 years old. We live in Vallejo, and we're in an apartment complex, and behind the complex is a big field, and it has all these big sticks and everything in the ground, right? And when you're a boy, you like to go into the field, and you like to play fort, you know, like build a fort, right? So me and about 4 friends, we would go back and we would build forts all the time. And then we'd throw rocks at each other and try to break each other's fort apart. There was one other person who would join us, and it was a female. And she was 2 years older than us, and her name was Penny. So Penny, we would call at that time, she was a tom girl, right? She wouldn't hang out with the girls. She wanted to hang out with the boys. So we would go back and we would play fort, and she would play right along with us, right? But Penny, when we got time to go home, Penny had a little ritual that she would want to play with us, you know? And because you had to climb underneath a fence to get back to the complex, you know, you had to slide under, Penny would be first, and she'd stand on the other side. So as each of us would go on the other side, she'd tell us, take your pants off. Now, right about then, I was learning how to masturbate, you know, and I was trying to perfect that kind of thing. So I had a little experience like, all right, I can take my pants off. And truth be told, when I was 5 years old in kindergarten, you know, I had like pubes going. So, you know, boys and, you know, they wanted to see my pubes then too. So I wasn't tripping, you know. I was like, oh, all right, take my pants off. So we get to the other side, and everybody would take the pants off, and Penny would look at your penis and stuff and give you approval. So it is true, these stories, you know, about the stereotypes are really true. But she would do it not every time, but surprisingly too much, okay? Just a little too much. Now, like I said, I was perfecting my masturbation skills, right? So, you know, at one time, I'm like, you know what? She just wants to see our penis, so I'm going to tell her no next time. So that's what I did. When I crawled under the fence one time, I jumped up, and then she said, take your pants off. I said, no. And she said, take your pants off. I said, no. Right about then, we got into a fist fight. You know, she's 2 years older. She was a bigger girl, you know. So we're going at it, though. And everybody, all the friends and everybody, like, go, get her. And we started punching and everything. And then she disappeared from being in front of me, and she was on my right side. And all of a sudden, she went down, and she bit me on the arm. I have a scar here today with teeth marks to show that she bit the shit out of me. It was bleeding, I screamed, why'd you do that? And I never told anybody what happened. I just would bandage it up from then on in, but I never pulled my pants down for her neither. So everyone else got all emboldened, and they didn't do it either. So we conquered Penny that day. We conquered her. We made strides that day. You see? It's like, like civil rights, right? We expressed our civil rights that day, not to pull our pants down for Penny. And unfortunately, though, Penny, she grew up and became a prostitute and was into drugs. Who knew? Which leads me to a drug story, okay? So here we go with a drug story, right? I'd come up here to go to law school at McGeorge a while ago. And one of my best friends, the guy who I hooked up with, we were on the same page and stuff. He was a square. Just a square. He wasn't into drugs. He wasn't into anything like that. He had a scholarship and shit, good grades, all that whole shit, right? Me, I wasn't like that. But we were friends. So he ended up graduating before I did, and he became a lawyer, and, he was kick-ass. And I wanted to be kick-ass, too, so we remained friends. And then he started having this terrible string of luck, because by then we would start partying together, and so now we were partying together. But he was married, and the first thing that happened to him is his wife ran away. She just started fucking other people and stuff. And he felt bad. He was a square, he couldn't take it. And then, within 6 months, his mother and his father died. Yeah. And, I'm sitting here like, oh, well, man, hey, you got to go back there and take care of business and all that stuff. But he didn't. He just stayed out here, and he started hunting in the night, so to speak. He'd go out and he'd look for, prostitutes and things like that, and he started smoking crack. And the unfortunate part is I'm standing there right with him. I'm with him the whole way. Now, he was a square. And when square people start using drugs, they go over the deep end. They really do, And so he went over the deep end. He did a couple of terms in prison. And I tried to represent him, but I knew he couldn't come back that way. And I'll tell you, here's the lesson of everyone. When you're a drug addict, they won't change until they want to. But here's the good news. Here's the good news, all right? So he gets out of California Department of Rehabilitation. He is a writer, so he writes a great story about what happens in there. He becomes a drug and alcohol counselor. He starts helping people with mental health and drugs and alcohol problems. He totally turns his life around. And the one thing that I told him when we gave up his bar card was that I don't care when the fuck it happens, but you better go back and get your bar card. Because, they give them to us, and it's kind of special, And I will tell you that earlier this year, he passed the bar, and now is a lawyer again. Man, what a story. So we have to have a human interest one, So that's a good thing. All right, so let's talk about rock and roll. Yeah. Well, I'm used to singing in a band. It was a reggae band. But I played music my whole life. My whole family did. And when I was 8 years old, I had bought a 45 for, it's a record, vinyl record. I bought the 45 of American Pie. And if you know that 45, it's American Pie Part 1, and on the other side is Part 2. And I love that song for some reason, probably because I couldn't understand it. And it was 13 minutes long, you know, but I love that song, you know. I'm trying to figure out, you know, what it was all about. But that's the first record I ever bought. So I was into rock and roll since I was a boy. But as I grew to be a man, I was in lowrider clubs. Okay, now lowriders, you know, low-lows, right? I had a 69 Riviera with trues front and back, you know, hopping and doing all the shit. I was in 2 clubs, one in San Francisco, one in Vallejo. And you know what we do, right? You know, we cruise. We kick it and cruise. So we'll get somewhere and we'll kick it, which means park your car near a lake, near something, and just kick it. You know, you turn your music up and, you know, everybody's just chilling, right? So, you know, we do that thing, you know, we're at Dan Foley Park in Vallejo, and they're kicking it, and I'm walking away from my car, because you don't want to be near your car. And so I hear music, lots of music going on, and then the music suddenly died down. It got quiet, you know, like there was no music. And I'm like, oh, that's weird. And then I hear this. Peace train rolling on, ride on the peace train. And I go, oh, Cat Stevens. Who's playing Cat Stevens? And I look over, and it's my freaking friend and his wife, and they're by my car, and they're laughing because they had gone in my car and found my Columbia Records thing of Cat Stevens, a cassette, because I had bought them that way. And I used to play that sucker all the time, except for when I'm cruising in the club. My bad. So they're laughing at me, and then it turns up, you know, really loud. So all I could think of doing is just running to the car, got the tape out, locked the doors, and ran away. Because it was, and everybody's laughing at me, and I'm embarrassed and stuff, you know. And it turns out, you know, I loved Cat Stevens, you know. Yusef for Salam now. But it made me think even more about the American Pie thing, you know. Because a lot of people don't know what he's talking about in that song. But you know that song was about the loss of Big Bopper, Richie Valens, right? And Buddy Holly. And Buddy Holly had that song, That'll Be the Day That I Die. And so I kept thinking, man, I love that last hook, man. Where it goes, what? Bye, bye, Miss American Pie. Drove my Chevy to the levee, but the levee was dry. And good old boys drinking whiskey and rye, singing, this'll be the day that I die. That's rock and roll for you. See ya.
Get up for Keith Stann! So good. I was just retelling a story the other day about how I commandeered some guy with a acoustic guitar in a bar that Al Capone used to hide out in Hot Springs, Arkansas, and made him let me sing all 13 minutes of that song. I think it was just me and my mom and the guy in the bar, though, so I think it was okay. There were other people there. They left in my mind, as they should have. Okay, you guys, are you ready for our last storyteller of the night? I'm very excited to introduce our next storyteller. I cannot find what you sent me. Here we go. Elena is a local multi-genre singer-songwriter with 4 albums out on all platforms. She sings more than she speaks, and this is her first time sharing this story publicly. So please give a very warm welcome to Elena.
I'm so nervous. I'm not even going to lie right now. This is the first time I'm telling this story as a whole. And you may see me moving a lot because I do have ADHD, but I have the kind where I have to hyper-focus on things. So I actually wrote my entire story up and sent it over, and she's like, no, you need to like not read it. And I was like, what? If I tell this story without reading it, it's not going to make any sense. It's going to confuse all of you guys and me probably. So I am going to use my phone as a reference. Since this is my first time telling a story, I mostly sing. My entire life was created, built, and established from sex, drugs, and rock and roll. And I'm only 30. What do I know about sex, drugs, and rock and roll? Well, you're going to find out. So back in 1995, there were two teenagers, 16 and 18, and it was the season of love. It was February, and they decided to probably to their favorite rock album. And here I came along in November of 1995. And my parents didn't know the whole time whether I was a boy or a girl, because apparently I had my legs crossed, and I was like, surprise. So either way, they knew that if I was a boy, my name was going to be Lane, and if I was a girl, they actually didn't have a name. So when I was born, they said, why don't we name her after both of our favorite musicians? So at the time, my mom's favorite musician was Alanis Morissette, and my dad's was Lane Staley, the lead singer of Alice in Chains. So my name's Elena, and I go by Laney, and that's been pretty much my nickname ever since. So yeah, they had sex, and here I came. That's the sex part. But there's a lot more to it. All right, so my dad was a musician. He was self-taught. At the age of 13, he got his first guitar, and he taught himself how to play guitar. He would fiddle around on the bass and the drums and the piano, and he was just so freaking talented. He wasn't someone who could read music. He just played, and it was great. And he was the type of person where he would try anything. He would try any drugs. He would try any musical instrument. He just had to try it all. He was a skateboarder. He liked to climb things. He hurt himself all the time. And I watched my dad grow up practically, him being so young, as I was young as well. And he was always in rock bands. So he would have a bunch of people over. They would jam out in the garage, and I would get used to the smell of pot everywhere. And I was just like, hell yeah, rock and roll. So I loved it. I loved the music and the vibe and people coming through. I didn't know at the time that there was a lot of drugs going on, but I just thought everyone was pretty chill. At the age of 10, I had an unsupervised opportunity. My dad at the time was selling drugs, and he had acid. And he had a sheet of acid that was laying in one of his drawers that was slightly open. And I knew kind of what it was. I saw people put it in their mouth, but I was like kind of confused at the same time. So I was curious one day, and I put it on my tongue, and I was like, this tastes like fucking nothing. Like, what is this doing? And so I kind of just rolled it around, let it get soggy, and I spit it out. Well, I was like bored, and I was like, well, what now? So my dad had one of those 5-disc CD changers, and he had 2 albums in it that were Perfect Circle albums that were out at that time. And so I hit play, and oh my God, I had the trip of my 10-year-old life. It was awesome. I listened to every note and every word, and I saw these visuals to the songs, and I laid there, and the room was like pretty low lit. And so it was like awesome because I was like, is this happening or not? Like, it just felt like a dream. So I had a great time. I don't know how long it lasts. Eventually, my parents got home, and I just kind of like went to my room and was alone. So I got away with it, and that was good. But after that, I felt like I really fell in love with rock music and music in general, and I felt really inspired after the acid trip. And so I started writing music, and the first song that I wrote was actually to an instrumental CD that I had, and I had one of those really bulky CD players, and I loved it so much. So it was an instrumental CD, and I wrote, when I look into your eyes, I see love for the first time. Your eyes so blue, like the ocean meets the moon. And so I just ran with it, and I showed that to my dad, and my dad was like, oh, that's so good. There was a lot more lyrics, but that was the first line of the song. And when I was 10, I had no idea who I was writing this song about. I was just like, oh, it sounds good. You know, I could picture it in my head. And so after writing that song and wanting to make a lot more music and poetry, backtrack, my dad had cried the first time he saw me sing, which was in kindergarten. And I had a 1-line solo that was like the first solo of, you know, the whole performance we did in kindergarten. And he cried, and I'll never forget him crying because I was like, Dad, like, I kind of sucked really bad, and like I was not doing very good, and there was several other people doing solos. It's not a big deal. But he was always my greatest support, and he was always someone who encouraged me to do what I loved. So throughout my chaotic and challenging childhood, I managed to sing through it and use music as a crutch. I sang in school choir and church choir. I sang any opportunity I could. I was told to shut up several times, but I just kept going. I learned easy songs on piano, and I played xylophone. And I also got kicked out of band in elementary school because I was too poor to purchase drumsticks. And so, my teacher was extremely rude, and she just kicked me out because I wouldn't buy drumsticks. And at the time, I thought, how can I get them? I was too afraid to ask anybody or to make it happen for myself. But I wrote songs and short stories, and I feel like I've always been a creative machine that has no idea what to do with all of this energy. And I also lacked the confidence and direction. So most of the time, I was fine with just like singing in a group of people and being in the background, and it was actually really nerve-wracking for me to be the center of attention. And so that was not something I was always comfortable with. But during my later school years, when I was in high school, I really had fun and ran wild with music because my parents encouraged it. So I really started to find the bands that I liked. I fell in love with the Beatles. I fell in love with Blink-182 and System of a Down, and of course Alanis Morissette and Aaliyah and Ashanti, because I listened to pretty much anything that was on the rock radio station at the time or the pop station. In 2014, I graduated and moved out on my own, and I got an apartment, and I started to experience with drugs. Yay! Finally, in a safe environment when I'm old enough, right? I became a stoner, which is not a drug, so I will say that. Weed is not a drug. I love marijuana. And my brother actually works at Pure Life. Shout out to Evan. I dabbled here and there with other things, though, but I didn't allow myself to fully become an addicted person. I always told myself, I'm not an addict, and I'll never be addicted to anything, and I continued to tell myself that. So it allowed me to have fun without overdoing it. But overall, I felt a lack of purpose and motivation, and I had severe mood swings because I struggled really bad with my mental health. And I used like the recreational drugs as a crutch to really get me through what was going on internally. And in 2016, I got prescribed antidepressants, and then I disconnected from myself even more, unfortunately. I was numb and emotionless, and I had a hard time keeping a stable job, building relationships, keeping friendships, all of that. And it was hard for me to even go to work at the time, and I got fired from several jobs. But one day, all of that changed, and this is where the story turns around. I fell in love. Where does love fit inside of this story? Well, that can't be right. When I was on drugs, I didn't think I could feel an absolute thing, especially because it was Seroquel. I was zombified, and I didn't even know emotions were a thing at the time. But I fell in love. I met a musician, and he was a blue-eyed, drugged-out musician. And yes, and I looked into his eyes, and they were blue, and I said, this was the person that I must have wrote that song about back when I was 10. It has to be him, right? But he was a friend of a friend, and as lost as I was, he reignited that fire in me and the passion, and I was so scared with the way that I felt because he would sing, and I would just feel like my entire soul melted into a million pieces and was like, okay, I have to be with this man. But he did not want to be with me, so I had to face that the hard way. I was absolutely infatuated and in love with this man. You could say obsessed. I am a Scorpio. We are known for that. So guilty as charged. But we partied together and had lots of sex, of course. And he was actually the first guy to ever make me squirt. So I didn't even know my body could do that. And that was really cool. But one night we were at a party, and there was lots of party favors. And my favorite was Snow at the time. And so we were just hanging out with, it was probably like 15 people at this party. And he pulls out his guitar, and he starts strumming and playing. And I like sit in front of him, crisscross applesauce, looking up at him just like, he's so pretty. And I start singing with him. I knew the song, and I started singing with him, and my whole world shifted. I, first of all, didn't think I would ever be confident enough to sing in that group setting with just another person. I know I sounded like complete shit, too, so like, ugh. But someone did take a video of us, and I wish I could have that video, but it's somewhere in the ether. But I didn't care about all the people around, and I actually felt really free in that moment and felt like I was meant to sing. And he told me I was a good singer. I think he lied at the time, but I'm really glad he did. And he inspired me to sing again and to write. And for so many years, being lost on drugs and struggling with mental health, I totally let like the music and creativity side of me go because I was just not feeling it. And so I felt like after falling in love, I felt it again. But later that night after that party, my car got towed. And then I had to pay like $250 to get it back. And then he told me I left my underwear at his house. And when I went back to pick it up after getting my car, he's coming out playing his guitar and my underwear just hanging off the end of the guitar. It was great. I was like, oh, why do I love you so much? But I blame all of that on the sex, drugs, and rock and roll. He was in a band, and he was in a badass one at that. He wasn't always in this band. He started at open mics, and I would go to pretty much any time he ever played at an open mic, and I would sing along to his songs. I wanted to know every single one of the songs that he had. But he eventually joined a band, and I loved all of his bandmates, and they loved me, and they wanted me to be in the band, but he would not have it. So I just accepted my fate that it was never going to happen, and I just needed to let him go. But we decided to be friends with benefits for like 6 years. And I was stupid enough to allow that to happen with him also never wanting to date me. So let's see here. Let's get back on track. I saw the attention that he got, and I saw his charm, and I saw how he treated everybody, and I knew that I wasn't the only one, if you know what I mean. So I was like, okay, I have to close myself off to this. But when I finally knew that he wasn't going to date me, I went to, this was like probably a few months in the beginning of that, and I was with this guy prior to the musician dude that I was never with, and when we broke up, and I started hooking up with the other guy and then went back to the other guy. Sorry, it was within like a month time frame, you know, I was whoring around or whatever. But I ended up getting pregnant. And so when I got pregnant, I didn't know who the dad was. I was like, oh, well, we're going to find out 9 months later. And one of the guys, the musician, had beautiful blue eyes, and the other looked vastly different. He was dark-skinned, dark hair, dark eyes. So I was like, well, I know if my baby comes out with blue eyes, who the dad's going to be. So I weaned myself off the antidepressants, and I stopped the recreationals except for the weed, and it helped me sleep and eat. And my pregnancy was rough. I really lacked stability. I was working a lot on my feet, and I was struggling with the ex-boyfriend who was also really bad, strung out, and was trying to take care of me. That was not too good. When my son was born, potential dad number 1, the one I didn't like, was in jail. Yes. And potential dad number 2 was a musician. And we did a mouth swab test when my son was less than 2 months, and it turned out that he was not the father of my child. Ironically, my son still has bright blue eyes, which is really weird. But I then knew at that moment who that song was about that I wrote when I was 10, and it was my baby boy, my son, who is now 9 years old. And so he was the love of my life, love for the first time. Becoming a mother extremely changed me. And since then, the drugs aspect has packed its bags and left me. And the sex has died down to when I get privacy and an opportunity. But the rock and roll is still very alive and has carried me through it all. So in 2018, a year after my son was born, I decided I wanted to make my first rock album. And my dad was my biggest support. So he's like, yeah, we're going to make you a rock album. So he helped me with about 7 songs. The total album has 18 songs on it. And I knew I couldn't do the album alone, so he definitely helped me a lot. But over the next couple of years, we completed those songs, and we were hitting up every local open mic that we could. And I was like, I'm going to do this without that guy. Screw that guy. I don't need to be in his band. I'm a good singer now. I've practiced enough. I could do this on my own. And then during the pandemic, it was really hard to get shows, and you know how that was. But in 2021, my father died of cancer at the age of 43. Fuck cancer. Losing my dad was the worst thing to ever happen to me. And my dad, like I said, was a musician. So thankfully, to keep him alive, I have all of his music. There's about 100 songs and counting that I have found of his that I am working on to release. I have released 1 album on behalf of him that is out on Spotify. So I want him to continue to share his music even after he's gone. And I blamed the drugs and the rock and roll from my dad's passing. In 2022, the musician and I got close again. We used to hang out often, sharing music, and of course, having lots of sex. We had been on and off friends with benefits for 6 years, and I was just as in love with him as I was when I first met him. And I wanted to still be with him. And one night we had sex at my friend's house, and no one was there, obviously. And the next day I told him, hey, I'm going to get my birth control taken out, and I wanted to let you know because you're like my only partner. And he was like, well, then I'm not having sex with you anymore. And I was like, but dude, like we already went through that whole thing, you know, like we thought my kid was yours. You were like cool with it, but then you were upset that he wasn't. So I'm just really confused. I'm getting all these mixed signals. And so he's like, no, I'm not having sex with you if you get your birth control. I was like, well, this is my decision. I'm doing it anyway. So I did. And we didn't really talk for about a month. And time had passed. And I found out after 4 months that he got my best friend pregnant. And it took her 4 months to tell me it was him because she knew how I felt about him. And she knew I was in love with him, and she did it out of spite. I mean, this bitch literally would copy tattoos that I have and try to do things that I did. She was really shysty. But my heart was broken after that. I was like, okay, dude, like, what is going on? This is tragedy after tragedy. I don't know what to do next, and I'm not going to revert back to the drugs, and I'm not going to, you know, self-sabotage anymore. So what do? So also that friend I had was for 14 years, which is insane. She was like my sister. Let's see. So in 2023, I left that state with my baby daddy there, with the old betrayed friends, and with that guy who I was in love with. And I came out here to California. So I've been out here for 3 years now. And it feels good to leave all that old energy behind and to kind of just cut myself off from the toxicity. It does still hurt very badly because I feel like the love that I have for this person, even though they've done me wrong, is like there's always a soft spot in my heart for them. And I've told them that I forgive them, and I've come to peace with the situation. But that's one that anyone who becomes my friend, I end up telling them what happened because that was fucked up shit. I'm now 30 years young, and I've released my original albums. The original album I set out to release of rock and roll, turns out it's very hard to make rock music, and it takes a lot of time. So it took me 7 years to finally release my album called Experience, which I now have quite a bit of, which is great. And the concept of the album is my exes, my experiences with exes, with the failed relationships and the attempts of trying to keep love in my life. But you should check it out if you want to. It sounds like shit. I made it myself. I've had a few people help me, but I'm really proud to just at least have it out there and to know that it exists. I'm also in a local rock cover band called Remedy, going on almost 3 years in January, and we do 80s and 90s rock. We just had a show last night at Pistol Pete's. We've been on this stage a whole bunch, and I am illegal substance free, and I'm thriving. So I'm thankful to say that I'm happy. And I'll continue to make music and sing because I know it's my destiny to sing. I was named after singers, and I can't stop. I didn't choose sex, drugs, and rock and roll. They chose me. And they will always make you do questionable things, and they will make you feel the most alive while also dancing with death. And they sure do make for one hell of a story. So I wouldn't be who I am today if it weren't for that life-changing combination. They're the easiest things to blame for the decisions that I've made and for the wrongs that I've done. And because of them, I've also learned to appreciate their opposites: love, sobriety, and silence.
Give it up for Elena! Thank you so much. Well, you guys, that's our show. Thank you so much for coming out tonight. Thank you to everyone who got up here and told a story, whether you expected to or not. It's always such a joy to be in a room with you guys. Please keep coming back. I don't know what next month's theme is going to be, so maybe it'll be mystery or something. I don't know. But we'll figure it out. It'll be a good time. Keep your eye out. And please keep coming back. Go to everyone else's shows. Be good to each other and go out there and make some good stories in the meantime. And if everyone who told a story could come up on stage for a group photo, I would greatly appreciate it. And thank you, everyone, for coming out. Thank you to the Green Room, Molly, Rebecca, and Alex. Thanks, everybody.
not enough room. Look, we haven't got room.